And this sort of happened by accident one day when somebody asked us to prepare some advanced training, and I was thinking, okay, what do we do? And then I always thought, well, we always get the question, so going back, we always get the question from the curious people, particularly, how do some of these factors relate to each other? So we've sort of focused your mind on working with the two strongest ones, but if someone is outgoing and creative, what does that mean? How do you zero in on that? And if someone is outgoing and they're content, what does that mean? Right? What's you know, or with the middle range. So if you really think about it, for Helen, the dominant trait for her, or the behavior that's going to stand out the most, is actually the combination of outgoing and creative. What is that? What is that? You know, how does that outwork itself? How is that expressed? And if you can know that, then the story's there. And in fact, I was doing this for somebody the other day on my own, and I thought, oh, it really reinforced to me controlling the goal. That's why I ripped this thing off his hand, because I wanted to do this bit. But it made a whole lot of sense. And now if I realize, okay, that's the zone I'm happy in, but I can learn to delegate everywhere else, that's like that explains a whole lot of behaviors. And controlling the goal may not be always the right thing to do either, because you've got to hear what everybody else's views on the goal are. But nevertheless, that's a behavior I'm going to more likely to demonstrate. So in the exercise, what we're really doing is, you know, taking the one-page report, you know, in following the steps here is interpret how your two primary strongest factors with scores over 60 and under 40 should interact with each other to strengthen or soften, you know, their behaviours, right? So what we're going to do is really work through how your two strongest traits interact, and then how do those two strongest traits, so let's say they are outgoing and creative, how do they interact with your next strongest traits? And write that down on the page, right? Am I making sense with that? And so, for example, let's just use the one on Helen. She is outgoing, was one of them, and creative, likes to be in the limelight with ideas. So do you see the story that can get generated out of that, right? Helen was outgoing and content, lifestyle focused, right? Helen was outgoing and spontaneous, can be impulsive. What was another one? Outgoing and cooperative, enjoys group situations. So you start to see a picture is building up out of that, right? And then if you go to creative for Helen, so she's creative and outgoing, so hopefully it's the same words. Don't worry, I did do to check that. You knew exactly where I was going with that to make sure, because I knew someone in the room would spot me out for that. Right, so, okay, I've made no mistakes there. But now, creative and spontaneous follows new ideas without any research. Oh, sorry, guys. Yeah, so this is an interesting one. For Helen, she is creative and she's quite content, will not actively pursue the new ideas. So in real life, she was an idea-a-minute person. But she wasn't necessarily going to take them out there and commercialize them in entrepreneurial pursuits, right, in terms of converting them into a business. That doesn't mean her ideas weren't of value, because actually without Helen Jones, a lot of what we have here wouldn't have been in existence. So she was sort of like the third psychologist who was in our team. So she actually helped bring to life a lot of the materials. Like, they've been reshaped and whatnot, but she would never go and build this herself. She might have seen the need, but it wouldn't have been her being to do that. So what was another one that was, I'm trying to think, we looked at that one. Cooperative, consensus approach to managing ideas. So very much a team-based person. So does that help you build a deeper picture? So again, now, I've got this, this has not hit the coaching report yet, but it will be in the first release next year. So this will actually be automated, so you won't have to go and do it. But in the short term, if you want to be more proficient and help you have the story with the clients, you could have these pages and print them out and just sort of keep them in a little folder, or reference them online and go through this one-page report and write out these phrases each time as you're preparing the questions.
I have a bit of a dilemma because I'm Helen, and really, I'm exactly the match. And I'm content and risk taker. So I will not actively pursue new ideas, and I do pursue new ideas. So which one am I?
So it's going to be the balance. It's going to be the balance of. It's going to be the balance of the. At the end of the day, the balance of the scoring, and so it is a little bit. There will be some people who are, you've got your profile, who are actually very cautious. So therefore, or middle range on that, so that one wouldn't pop up. You know, so
what do I look at for the deal breaker in there to give me, like if
the stronger of those two combinations would be the more likely the place.
Which percentage is higher on those, or
Yeah.
lower? Which,
Yeah.
how would I, if one is on the low side and one is on the high side, how do I figure that one out?
Becomes a slight mathematical game. So you would actually need to go through the report and...
Slightly more risk taker, no, would be.
Yeah, so yours is slightly more risk taking?
Your percentage is like I'm 62 risk taker and 31 content.
So that the 31 content is stronger.
See, I couldn't have figured that one out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where the technology will do that for you to save the mental gymnastics. So on balance, I would say, Monique, you're more likely to not actively pursue the new ideas in a complete commercialization, but there might be still some risks with bringing them to fruition in coaching, but not necessarily going and creating the brand new coaching program that revolutionizes the world. There'll still be some risk-taking going on. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I'm more idea. I create. It's in the creating of the ideas that I get the pleasure.
You ideate.
It's not necessarily in executing.
Yeah, you're the think tank, right? And for me, you would be someone I'd come to who's got a good perception of people and relationship with people to say, how's this going to go down with people? And we're sitting here, and DNA sitting here with a problem with our materials and resources. You would be a person I would come and ask to see what your thinking is, or we might say, let's experiment with a new idea in the coaching program, but I wouldn't be thinking, you're not going to go down from being think tank to building a whole new system. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's sort of the difference in here. So there will be, but what you're raising is there will be some, what I call little conflicts in these, and which one are you, it's really in the end of the day, which one are you more of? That's where I would jump to first. Mm-hmm. But in terms of figuring it out, yes, this is still a little bit clumsy because, you know, we only put this there a little while ago with some risk because I knew it was clumsy, but I felt like it changes the game on the insights. And that, so testing that out, for me, testing it out in the training and saying, okay, yeah, everyone can get it, we'll put it in the report now. And you know, 6 or 7 years ago, there were no questions in the reports. And we had them all littered through handbooks, and we had to go and figure out, half the training was figuring out, well, I have to pull out this question, whatever. So, you know, I think this is the last step in here. If that, does that help? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, would somebody like to do this on their report if they tell me the two strongest traits, and we can sort of work through it?
Cooperative and creative.
Okay. Oh. So cooperative and creative. consensus approach to managing ideas. Does that seem right? Yeah. Are you happy with that? Yeah. Okay. So now, if we took cooperative, what are some of the other stronger traits there, Caitlin?
Outgoing.
Oh, sorry guys. Enjoys group situations. So working by yourself too much probably is a problem, and not being able to offload ideas, right? Yep. What's the next one? Content. Keep situations relaxed. Yep. Okay. So too much energy, people you're working with getting too worked up, that's not going to be good. Particularly if they're expecting your ideas. You know, if they're snapping the fingers, that's not going to be good. Yep. Mm-hmm. What would be the next one?
Spontaneous.
Oh, gee whiz, I keep getting the wrong button on here. Spontaneous, moves with the flow. Okay. So one thing will be is in the ideation that's going to go on in GarageWorks is for you to manage this, right? So get a little bit of room to move. Going with the flow will be a natural strength for you. But I'd say you need to speak up a little bit too when you're going to need to speak up when stuff's getting changed too much, right? That's going to be a challenge because you're going to want to follow. So the other one is creative. Let's go to creative. And that was, so we had outgoing, likes to be in the limelight with ideas. Okay. So GarageWorks is really yours. Yeah, accepting of new thinking. Yeah. And I think content will not actively pursue the new idea. So that's again there working with Josh who's going to push it through, I think. But for you to be on the stage in coaching and mentoring some of these entrepreneurs, coming through and pushing the point of what they need to do or not do to be successful, that would be good. So some of the training, I think that's going to be a good role for you, right? Analysing which one will be successful using all the profile framework, I think you'll be able to do that, right? Whether it needs to be Josh, the one that sort of like actually tells them in the end, you know, more directly, that might be...
A little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. What was another one that you had?
Content, creative.
Yeah.
Trusting, fast-paced.
Yeah, logical with identifying new ideas. Okay, so does it work or not? It's not just, you know, airy-fairy stuff. It's real. Okay? So that builds up a picture. Yeah. Now, Leon, how much time have we got?
We're at 11 o'clock, I think.
Are we behind or are we ahead?
Actually,
We're on time.
we're on time.
Right.
A little bit more time, so you've got the last thing we're working on before launch
Is a comparison report. So do we want to do one more of these? Does somebody else want to be? I'd like to get somebody who's different because, yeah, Keith. So just because I think it brings it out a little bit more. Yeah.
So I was unplanned and anchored.
Planned and then anchored. Finds changing approach hard. Is that true? If you've got a methodology and a set way, is that hard? Yeah. Quite.
I've worked hard to arrive at what that is.
Yeah.
To change it is.
Going to be a bit more stubborn about it. Yeah. Okay.
Take charge.
Just when I read that, I thought, okay, that's true of those two traits, but is it? If we expressed it a little bit negatively, you know, but if you embrace that as being, it's true, that's okay, you know, because you just gave an explanation to it, right? You worked hard to get there, but I'm still going to look at the words.
Take charge is one of my other
So planned and take charge. Manages projects. Yep. What would be another one, Keith?
Outgoing.
Yep. Likes to make a good impression. Yep. Fast-paced.
Yes.
Analyzes information logically. And cautious, was it one?
Yep.
Focused on risk management.
Yep. Skeptical.
Yep. Critical thinker. So that's building up a picture. Oh. And then we got anchored here. So we had set vision on what is known. Okay. I think that and you had take charge as one of those. Yeah. You had outgoing, networks in a consistent way. Probably a methodical approach to networking. Is that right? I mean, some people build a process for this. Nikki, there's something you want to say?
No, he just said yesterday he doesn't go to networking events. That's his approach.
Well, networks in a consistent way.
Some people are very targeted when they do networking. Like, okay, it's certain types of groups. I've got to pick it out. What's the ROI of it, et cetera, et cetera. I'm only going to go there if there's useful people, whatever. Whereas others will go there because they'll do it because it's fun, and every person I meet could be a potential relationship whenever it will happen in my life, you know. And they'll have fun and they get enjoyment out of it. Their energy is different with it.
I've been invited to open networking events, and I've refused to go. Yeah. So if it's kind of more of a planned, and I know what the group is, and I know what then I can do that. Yeah.
So anchored with planned, finding change, approach hard. Yep. So we sort of talked about that.
Skeptical was one of them.
Skeptical.
Wary of change. Makes
Yep.
sense.
Risk-taking, takes risks on proven ideas. Careful with new ideas. Right?
And cautious.
Yep, careful with new ideas.
Yeah, right.
That's the build-up.
And what
So
was fast-paced? Prefers existing methods if they get results.
Prefers existing methods if they get results. Yeah. So I think this sort of provides a pretty good picture, and I mean, that's an end result, right? That's Chris Coddington's. So he's controlling about the goal. His pioneering trait gets him there, you know, opportunistic to achieve goals. And this is all in order. So that's from a software point of view, that's what we will produce in the reports. Yeah. We just got to make Ryan work harder, you know. And the software team.
There were some blanks in there. Did you, was that because they don't correlate at all, or is that because?
Well, risk taker and risk taker, so you only get.
Yeah, the risk taker and patient.
Patient
is the
and
other side of
creatives
it.
and things like that.
They just don't correlate at all.
Okay.
And so I didn't even want to go there at putting those two together. And they happen so rarely. Now, what will be interesting is mathematically when we come out with it and when we see the odd one pop up. But I think I can only remember one or two relationship builders in the whole career of this that would be risk takers. But we may have to come up with what that is, what those
So I come up as patient instead of fast paced like most initiators, but I'm right on the line at like 50. So I think flexing would be pretty easy for me. But if you look at the patient and creative, there's not a description there. And I think it's because it's very rare that.
patient and creative has got one?
Okay, so the other way you don't have it.
Well, then my methodical person's got me out, right?
I was still thinking about the net. She tried to throw me with the networking. So
we'll do an audit of this. It's 99.9% correct, right? None of the statements are wrong. It's just whether we need to put one in. But I think you're generally patient people can be creative. So I want to make sure of that. But patient people being risk takers, there'll be the odd one, but it's like that's 1 in 4 trillion. Because they might hit 50 or 51, but they just, just not going to get, it's really not going to, it's not going to be very strong. But because it might come up, we might need to put it in there.
And the networks in a consistent way, I believe is how that was worded, is no networking would be a consistent way. Okay.
And the not applicables.
Yeah, exactly.
So the not applicables we've got are, trusting and trusting, because you can't, that just scientifically doesn't work, right? And then trusting, the other side of trusting is skeptical, so you can't be that. So that's where you get the not applicables popping up in there. Otherwise, every other box should be populated with something. So there's a couple that were missing, that were dead opposites that Paul, again being detailed, picked up that we might need to address whether but they are, I think my mindset at the time was, they don't happen. But maybe we ought to have them there. Yes. Michelle.
So on my profile, I'm patient and I'm a risk taker.
Okay. So careful with taking risks. Yes. Did we have it around the wrong way somewhere?
On the risk taker, I'm bold and risk tolerant, but on the patient, I'm
So we actually have the words in the other one there. It's just we need to put it in. Yeah.
Are you patient and risk taker?
Yeah. So that's very rare. So if we go to patient and risk taking, we've actually got it there. Careful with taking risks.
Okay.
So actually, the box that was blank, we should put it in. But there are very few. What was your score on risk taking?
It was a 58 and a 57.
Okay, then you're one of the 4 trillion. 1 in 4 trillion.
See, you are unique.
You blew my theories out of the water. Yeah.
Probably working
Thank
with
you for
Sasha.
validating that.
But I would say, if I was your financial planner, right, putting that hat on, then that's what we call the potential Molotov cocktail client, because you could take risks, but then emotionally, how comfortable are you with taking the risks? That would be the big question I would be bringing up. So the financial DNA version of this is going to bring that out. That's not to say don't take the risks, but if you go and, because someone's sold you a line on this great property development and you put your money in there and then it loses, that's going to really, really hurt for you. Right? Or on a business idea, you really back the horse hard and it doesn't work, that's going to be a much bigger drain on you emotionally than if you were fast-paced.
Okay.
So when we're dealing with this around money, that's where we go to.
And the risk taker, I'm looking at the line of, with careful with taking risks, logical with taking risks, and calculated taking risks. I mean, I understand spontaneous is way out there, but those first 3 seem so similar to me. I have a hard time differentiating, so I'm looking up the patient, the fast pace,
So
and the planned.
just
I can understand with the planned that I'm just looking for a little more differentiation with those. If you can give
so the risk taker, is that, yep. So you're saying logical? Yeah.
Under, where were you? On risk taker and. Go back.
Oh, yeah, it was on the
Yeah, it was the other slide. There we are.
patient. Yes, that was the right slide.
No, that's not the slide either.
This one right here. Careful with.
Yes, thank you.
logical
That's the slide, yes. Can you differentiate those a little more for me?
So
I'm
if
trying
you're
to help someone through that.
so if you're the better way to, well, the risk taker, if you're patient, you'll be very careful, but the opposite of risk of patient is fast-paced. You'll be quite logical. So logical will be looking at risk-reward calculations, but you would still possibly take the risks, whereas the person who's careful is going to be a lot more cautious about not taking the risk. Now remember, patient and fast-paced are the opposite side of that one factor. So the logical is the logical people are usually very rational. They'll make up a decision quite quickly based on all the analysis, but if they are a genuine risk taker, once they've done that, they will jump off and do it. Okay? So you'll look at, so what will happen is those words will, if you look at it from this perspective, which is the better play, I think the other way of looking at it,
It sounds like patience is a slower moving response.
much slower.
If you were going to make a financial investment, that risk you would make a much slower decision on, and the logic is, if it meets your logic criteria, you'll be fast acting on it, and then
You'll follow an algorithm, basically, like the trade ideas at meeting I was at yesterday. You would follow the algorithm. If it says buy, you'll just, because the
you'd have an annual strategy and how you divided it up so it all made sense and was balanced.
and if you're patient, you still would be testing your feelings and you'd be thinking about it and you procrastinate a lot more in making it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think if you look at it from this angle, if you're a risk taker, then the story starts to build out more clearly because you're unlikely to get the two negatives near each other when you look at it this way. So how it flows out is important.
So the difference between logical and calculated. So you got fast-paced is logical and planned is calculated under a risk taker.
They're very close together. That would be where I would pick, to Monique's point, be saying, okay, that's not as differentiated in the wording. But what you would be saying is some people, like the strategists, are absolutely logical because they just think about it in terms of numbers, and then they're also planned. It's going to be a calculated decision. They're going to weigh up the pros and cons a whole lot more. Again, they will sit there and think about it. Whereas if someone was fast-paced and spontaneous, once they've decided the logic of it's right, they'll just jump into it if they're spontaneous. Whereas if you're planned, you're still going to take longer with making that decision. Does that make sense? Some of these are close.
Nuanced.
Then it's nuanced. It's heavily nuanced. But I think when you see the stories build out across the two factors, and assuming your two strongest factors are, they'll normally be following a pattern, then you'll see a pretty consistent story pop out. And again, this can become a...
the whole story of everything.
Yeah.
Which your client isn't going to see.
Yeah.
So you won't get into those discrepancies, most likely.
Yeah, and you're seeing against a word here, fast-paced, you're seeing it against risk-taker and cautious. You're seeing the whole model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's also an opportunity for a question to your client.
Yep.
To test the theory you might have.
Because I think every one of these phrases is a question. So if you took we've got the question agenda and then you've got this table as well, this is a whole nother piece of meat. And if I was going to say create a story about each individual, this is how I was thinking of it when it was created, it's right here. What's this person like? Because I like when I'm, before I go to the coaching session or the feedback session, however it's going to be framed, I like to have a visualization of each person. What are they like? And to me, this puts it together.